All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. Starting a little bit early today, actually, because I've got a quiet moment alone, so take advantage of that. I realize that means less people may show up, but that's all good because it's the Friday stream. I just want the energy to wind down for the weekend. Going to be making fried chicken again tonight. Yes, it will have panko breadcrumbs and all sorts of good shit. Yes, you use buttermilk. Yes, with egg. Use that to wash it in. You dry the wet first, then you wet the dry, and then you just roll it around in panko until you're satisfied. Yeah, to Mark Gidetti, I would actually like to have a more set schedule, but I'm terrible with schedules. And of course, when you've got a child and other considerations, it can become a little bit difficult. So let's make sure that we're live over on Rumble at the moment. I see Marcus, 1967. Good morning, Clankers. Morning, Sticks. Good morning to you as well. Yeah, we're live over on Rumble. So yeah, we'll have maybe a little bit of a lower key stream, actually, because we're starting roughly an hour before I normally start. It's a good time had by all. To Dreamology, yes, the stream did indeed just start. So we'll start right off here. We've got quite a bit of news to cover. Some of it's got more levity than others. The first one, unfortunately, not particularly funny. I will be analyzing this a little bit. This is an opinion piece from Unheard. We are already at war with Russia. Never-ending escalation will result in catastrophe. It's entirely possible, just to be clear. I'll just read a little bit of this. The admission that the weapons being provided by the U.S. and NATO are of an offensive, not defensive character, this is something that was stated recently, it marks a significant U-turn for the Biden admin. In March last year, Biden promised the public that the U.S. would not send offensive equipment and planes and tanks to Ukraine. Of course, we are now sending Abrams tanks to Ukraine because this would trigger World War III. Indeed, just a few months ago, the provision of tanks to Ukraine was still deemed unthinkable. We're now giving them tanks, so are the Germans. This is called mission creep. It has happened before. It happened with regards to the U.S. Arming and funding the FSA in Syria. It certainly happened in Afghanistan. It certainly happened in Iraq. It happened in Vietnam. So a lot of people are too young to remember it, myself included. But if you look at the history of it, it starts off with literally nothing more than some non-lethal aid and advisors, basically training troops. Then it results years later in full-on invasion, boots on the ground, crossing borders, bombing things, et cetera, et cetera. It went well beyond giving logistics. This technically happened actually in Iraq long before the U.S. invasion there in the 2000s, by the way. We were giving logistic aid to Saddam Hussein to fight the Iranians back in the 1970s. We then flipped sides, and then we'd abandoned them both, and then eventually decided that Saddam needed to go. We did it the first time under Herbert Walker Bush. It didn't go over so well. And then under W, of course, we finally got our man and then summarily hanged him. And that video was released to great plaudit by idiots, to people that thought it was a great thing. The thing is, typically what you see in modern warfare by symmetric states, so the U.S., Russia, etc., you don't throw everything in at once. It's not just a full-scale invasion right off the bat. There's a lead up to it. It can be diplomatic. It can be of a military nature, which is what we're seeing in Ukraine. The problem is that red lines that the United States over and over professed would be unacceptable to cross have been crossed. You can support the Ukrainian people and support the notion that they should be left alone and wish them well and try to help them any way you can without starting World War III. This particular kind of nuance is completely lost in wartime. Typically what happens is that everything gets propagandized. So when you think of Putin, for example, how is he portrayed by the Western media? He's portrayed in some cases as literally like a chimpanzee. They've made 1,000 shoots of this. Or he's portrayed as being, he's off his rocker. Like you had that news story about a month ago where they said that he fell down the stairs and shit himself. There's no evidence that this claim is true. But if you question that claim, oh, you're being pro-Putin. Oh, you evil, Russaboo or something like that on the other side. Zelensky is portrayed as a one-dimensional caricature as well by Russia, by people in the Eastern Bloc sphere. There's no nuance. What is lost is that nobody cares about the civilians that are being butchered and deranged. Nobody apparently cares about World War III brinksmanship. The same liberals right now that are gung-ho for the star-spangled bullshit that they're seeing right now, to the point where they have no problem about this particular strategic U-turn by the U.S. Armed Forces and by the Biden stewardship, is completely different from the way that they regarded wars that were being led by Republican presidents in recent history. Some of us maintained our particular beliefs. I am anti-war. I oppose the war that Russia's waging in Ukraine. I oppose the warmongering of NATO countries towards Russia. It's unhelpful. There's no clear end to the conflict. That's number one. It could be hopeless for either side and end up resulting in hundreds of thousands of casualties there. And it could result in a nuclear war. I don't think that'd be helpful for my career. Just saying, when the radiation's flying around, it might fry out my computer electronics. So can we cut it out a little bit? Just imagine you live streaming and then the mushroom cloud in the background, like, oh shit, peace out for the last time. Mark Vedetti. Clankers should flood Project Veritas with phone calls demanding O'Keefe be reinstated. I have a feeling that they're not going to reinstate him. I have a feeling they've already made up their mind. And the hit pieces are really what I'm going to fixate on when I talk about that in a bit. The 21.6 talk show, Boomer Biden is going to get us all deleted. Rob S. Clank. Keep in mind that nuclear war is at no time particularly likely, but the fact that we even discuss what the likelihood is in and of itself an admission of diplomatic failure. I'm not saying that there's any particular diplomatic solution to the current conflict that's going on there, probably only a military one, but simply giving a bunch of tanks to Ukraine is not magically going to make the Russians get routed in full retreat and Putin say sorry or something like that. So, hey, kitty. Yes, by the way, I checked, and 3 of the thumbnails for the week's videos was this, the cat's asshole. Don't you all feel very privileged? Next news story. This is a big oopsie, by the way. The FBI discontinues its campaign against radical traditionalist Catholics. Washington. The FBI has reportedly disavowed an intel report that recommended radical traditionalist Catholics be targeted as potentially violent white supremacist extremists. You'll note that a considerable proportion of U.S. Catholics happen to be Hispanic, but we'll get by that for the moment. The FBI said it is looking into how the contentious memo came to be. Yeah, they're going to throw some staffer under the bus because of this. The FBI said in a statement to Fox and other media outlets that the report does not meet the exacting standards of the FBI. Oh, maybe that whole part about there being a longstanding prohibition on you taking this sort of action with regards to religious groups? Yeah, you may have run afoul of that. As soon as FBI headquarters became aware of the document, action was taken to remove it from the FBI systems and review the document's foundation. Yeah, I'm sure that you wanted to remove it from public purview because you got shit on by literally everybody. There aren't that many people, including a lot of non-Catholics, of course I'm not a Catholic, who support the concept of organized religious structures being impugned upon with taxpayer money. Catholicism, if anything, is the more liberal of the Christian religions, the more leftoid you could call it, along with the Universalists and a few others. It's really the Protestant groups are more likely to be fire and brimstone, or latent orthodoxy, actually, Orthodox groups. I realize that there are traditionalist Catholics that call, like, the current Pope is Vatican II, etc. They want the Latin Mass. So that's literally listed on the memo. If you want the Latin Mass back, which was the tradition for a very, very, very fucking long time, apparently that makes you a white supremacist. Even if the Jesus you have hanging in the church looks like he wandered in from Guadalupe or something like that. Apparently you are a Nazi, according to them, or at least more likely to be a Nazi. The SPLC being mentioned here, of course, they've been entirely discredited at this point. Most of what they say is basically just, bitching about some YouTuber or something like that. I've never been bitched about directly by the SPLC. I'm actually a little bit mystified by that, considering my particular views. They bitch about people that are much more mild than me all of the time. I got bitched about by the Wall Street Journal once. That article listed Alex Jones and, oddly enough, BP Earthwatch, who is still making content. He's, other than being particularly religious, there's nothing out there about him other than claiming that solar flares are going to cause a swarm of quakes tomorrow or something like that. He doesn't even talk as much about politics. They still bitched about him. Catholicism overall, though, is the more progressive, small p, religion, as opposed to other branches of Christianity. I'm wondering, are we going to find out that there were other internal memos about other religious groups? Because they're not supposed to exist. The FBI is specifically prohibited from taking action in general against religious groups. Now, if it's like a cult that's trafficking children or something, that's fine. They can go after that for a criminal matter. They're not supposed to even be looking into this sort of thing. They're specifically prohibited from doing so. But they will find some low-level agent to throw under the bus. Somebody who's not liked in the office will take the fall for it. Cameron Vesey, it's 4 a.m. here. Have a fruity caffeine-infused canned drink on me. I'm having coffee. Yeah, these aren't fruity. They taste more like just bubbly chemical water. Probably good for me. Null hypothesis, Sticks 666. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Patrick D, good morning, Sticks. Glocks are ugly. I think that they're aesthetically pleasing weapons, actually. I kind of like their sort of blocky, I don't know, quasi-retro-futuristic look. Plus, they're reliable. They're cheaper than some alternatives. What's not to like about Glock? I don't understand. Like, people get into these little cliques. They treat guns like they're sports teams or something like that. I would never buy that gun. It's by the wrong manufacturer. Other than Taurus, not necessarily known for reliability quite as much, just to be clear. There's a reason why the price is so much lower. All of the others are more or less interchangeable for the same kind of fucking gun. I've also got a Ruger. I've got others. And definitely want to get more guns when I get back into the United States. Apparently, they're trying to ban all of them now. Just look at Oregon's law, which, by the way, as I reported this morning, continues to be injuncted by the courts there. The Supreme Court refusing to lift the injunction on, Proposition 114, actually. So that stays in effect for the indefinite future. Caffeine is the way to go. Bought 38 special with a laser. Had to report it stolen as soon as I got it. Interesting. Next news story. This is a fairly big one. James O'Keefe put Project Veritas staff through public crucifixions, leaked memo says. Yes, they are obviously attempting to dogpile James O'Keefe at this point. And in the subsequent 24 hours since I talked about this yesterday on my live stream, it has become fairly apparent to me that for one reason or another, the people that are calling the shots at Project Veritas simply don't like James O'Keefe. Now, initially, of course, the report was, well, he's mistreating people. But when I see this massive wall of legacy media articles parroting that point, this is Rolling Stone, a link in the description archived, of course, by the way. When I see Rolling Stone and Vox and all of the others parroting the same lines based on the memo, not really, other than, lie by structure and putting it in the 5th paragraph of the article, not even asking, well, we're not exactly sure of the veracity of these claims. After all, an employee or former employee of the workplace can claim whatever the fuck they want. They can claim that there are aliens in the freezer of the local McDonald's. That doesn't make it true. But I'm not seeing a great deal of critical reporting. And I think that was the point. The point was to try to destroy James O'Keefe, in my opinion. There are people there that for one reason or another, maybe he did disrespect several employees that don't like him. And so they're taking it to the court of public opinion. But the thing is that Project Veritas and James O'Keefe are generally well regarded in one wing of politics. So where's all the fire coming from? It's coming from the other side. They're going to use this to try to whip up a pink-haired lynch mob, cast James O'Keefe as a hateful individual, off his rocker, and try to oust him. That's, in my opinion, what is going to happen here. I don't see any proof of these claims, though. I see a memo that refers to people making complaints. That doesn't mean anything. And to be clear, if James O'Keefe called someone a pussy, nobody should care. If James O'Keefe felt a little bit paranoid and had private investigators searching through shit to see if somebody was actually doing their job, I don't see the problem with that, considering the kind of work he's engaged in doing. This is investigative journalism. This isn't running a restaurant franchise. It's a little bit different. And I would note that internal searches and so forth and investigations happen at legacy media outlets on a regular basis. They do. It is not beyond the pale to say, well, the New York Times editorial boardroom hired a PI to look through some security footage and some computer contents and shit because they think that a couple of employees are fucking off. They think that there was a reason why the teleprompter malfunctioned 3 times last night. They think it might have been sabotage, so they're looking into it. Well, what's the problem? It's a private company, can do what it wants, right? Here's the other problem. James O'Keefe is such a powerful figurehead that if Project Veritas outs him, even if there is a legitimate reason, let's say they've got proof of all this. They've got proof of him spitting on people, backhanding him, acting like a total pimp daddy or something like that to female employees. If you get rid of him, Project Veritas suffers a massive reduction in its reach simply by not having him there. And that's why they're carefully, and this is the other totally coincidental part of these reportings, they're casting him off as having a huge bloated ego and acting like he's the kingpin. Well, how goddamn coincidental. Yes. That's not a perfect tactic to deploy against somebody who literally is the kingpin of Project Veritas, the only one that most of us even know exists there. Can you name any of the other people that work with them? No, probably not, unless you're looking into this story in some degree of depth and detail. John Smith, what type of mic do you recommend for a podcast? If you've got optimum conditions, any decent microphone will work. I use an AT2020. If I had an optimum recording setup, you wouldn't hear the fuzziness and shit in the background. It would be a lot better. I don't have an optimum setup right now. It is not optimal. All systems are not go. I don't have an office to work in right now with soundproofing, etc. Richard III. I'm Catholic. My family was offed by the Klan. I'm not a racist, surprisingly. Yeah, exactly. Like some of the foremost white supremacist groups fucking hated Catholics until fairly recently. The Klan only started allowing Catholics to join back in the 2000s, I think. Lawn care for U42. Glocks grow ever more appealing. You mentioned Oregon voters referring to the passage of 114, but what you're referring to in reality is Californian votes. Well, yeah, I mean, expat Californians do live there. I like Glocks. Yeah, their particular law is even more stupid than most of the anti-gunnery that I've seen because it would effectively ban a whole slurry of weapons that they're not even concerned about, mostly handguns, because you'd be removing the ability to use the standard 15-round magazine that comes with most handguns. So you're going to have to get something that's been modified or modify it yourself to reduce the number of bullets that you can hold. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, I guess my Glock 17 under this would not be able to be brought into Oregon because I don't even know if there's a 10-round alternative to the 15-round standard magazine. There might be. I mean, you can modify it, but in its current form, you wouldn't even be able to bring it. And then there's also the problem of grandfathering in. If you don't grandfather, it's meaningless. If you do grandfather, it means you have to go around confiscating a bunch of shit that people don't want to give up. And then you end up with casualties. So as far as James O'Keefe goes, again, I'm leaning towards towards Team James O'Keefe as opposed to Team Project Veritas. I think there's some shenanigans up here. When you go to the court of public opinion over such a thing, instead of handling it internally and saying, look, James, you fucked up, you change your behavior, you're out or something, they decided to broadcast it before the world. There's a reason that typically happens. It's an attempt to shame and humiliate a person and weaken them, to get people to turn against them, and hopefully also cough up other bits of information about them if possible, so that you can dogpile them. This is the dogpiling of James O'Keefe, regardless of whether it's warranted or not. 10 all around Connecticut, no bullpup shotguns, no AK-47, Constitution State. Yeah, right, says Miller's Meat Locker. Yeah, I guess Project Veritas is going to become basically a lobby firm or something. Lemon Curd Zero. Cam. Why are people saying Cam over on Rumble? Did my camera drop out? Let me check. Did something happen? Something terrible? I can't even get it to... No, I don't see any problem over on Rumble. I have no clue what's going on. Yeah, Buddy Mac 13, O'Keefe is Project Veritas. I would disagree. Project Veritas is bigger than O'Keefe, but when you have your all-star quarterback and you sack them for no reason, it's not going to go over well with the team's fans now, is it? Magnastic Ralliart, how would you rate Grant as a president? He was a shit president overall, but he was a wise man in one way. He realized that onions were very nutritious, and so he had trainloads of onions brought in for his soldiers, which must have helped improve the food considerably. Hardtack, you just, some shredded onion on top. They'll kill the worms, maybe, and then you can eat their dead bodies for a little bit of protein. Null hypothesis. The old man rancher that shot an illegal alien has a 1 million and is being prosecuted. Will juries start acquitting vigilante killers like this? They could use jury nullification if they feel that he was justified. Apparently, he had frequent border crossers on his property. Again, though, what I would say is we do need to wait for more information. You can't simply shoot a person who's running across your property in the other direction. Under no circumstances, generally, is that going to be justified. Was the individual coming towards him, threatening him, brandishing a firearm or a knife or something? Then it's potentially justified if the charges continue. Even if they establish that there was wrongdoing, I would do jury nullification in that case. I'd say, look, you were attacked. You defended yourself and your wife on your property. I wouldn't have a problem with that. If the person is proven to have been fleeing at the time, which is likely the case because he walked out of his home with a gun, that would be a legal problem. Maybe not an ethical problem to some people. They're like, well, if they're illegally in the country and illegally on the property, go ahead and blow them away. Okay, you can go ahead and do that and see how long before the popo shows up. You will be dragged before a court and a jury of your peers, potentially. Personally, I think if a person's not a present and immediate threat, then you generally shouldn't kill them. Yeah, exactly. JL, with the prevailing opinion among many of my audience, it was an illegal, good shoot, period. Yeah, but the problem is it's illegal, so potentially illegal, situationally. It depends on the situation. It's more important to respect the law in such a case where you're facing, 30 years to life in prison. A little bit different from, I ran the red light. Shit. I accidentally went through this crosswalk at the wrong time. I didn't stop at the stop sign and there were lights behind me. Okay, you're not going to go to prison for that. Maybe you're intoxicated at the time. Even for that, again, you're not going to go to prison. When you kill someone, you have to make sure that it's legal to do so at the time. Paul possibly has the right to defend his cattle. I don't know that would apply. Again, you would have to establish that the cattle were being attacked. And trespassing, again, generally speaking, in most states, it's not a killing offense. A person simply being there on your property does not necessarily give you the right to blow them away. In most states, if the person's on your property, they're legally there, you've told them to fuck off. You can't simply open fire. Have they moved towards you? Have they verbally threatened you? Do they have a firearm or other weapon? Then in some cases, it's permissible. Otherwise, it's not, especially if they've turned their back to you. I don't know of any state in which you can kill a fleeing person unless they're specifically armed, that they're going after somebody else and they happen to be moving in the other direction. I don't think any state allows that. Green Glassful, mass illegal immigration in the U.S. is the problem. Duh, I would agree. Not one that's going to be solved by one person getting shot on some rancher's field. Yeah, cattle rustling would be a serious crime, but again, we have to wait for details about whether this individual was attempting to eat one of his cows. Next news story, the Washington Times reporting, how Twitter flew cover for Biden. Americans lose when big tech colludes with big government. Yes, the other day, we got Yoel Roth before Congress to talk about his opinions on free speech, et cetera, et cetera. You saw AOC's meltdown there, rambling about how the committee is a pile of bullshit. This is bullshit that we're even doing. They should remove her capability to even speak in Congress because she's so goddamn shrill and unlikable. The leftoid should be calling on AOC to wear a muzzle when she's seated in Congress so she'll stop fucking embarrassing them. So far, they haven't gotten the memo. First, the Twitter files lifted the lid on big tech bias that had been shielding President Biden and his son Hunter from deserved scrutiny. Congressional hearings provided added details of how Washington officialdom egged on the social media firm. This was the important part, by the way. Famous for its little blue bird of free expression. What fucking year is it? To fly cover for the Biden brand. Americans deserve a full accounting, and they are going through it now. And, to be clear, this is also a big win for the GOP, including the McCarthy wing of the GOP. To his credit, he has followed through on convening members of Congress to try to look into what happened here with regards to Hunter Biden's laptop, the Twitter files more generally, etc. He did promise that. He is delivering on that particular promise. That was a big one. Looking into what the fuck happened where the Biden administration was illegally and explicitly leaning on supposedly private firms to censor lawful speech by US-based users. That was a big one. I would put it very high on the priority list that I myself spoke of months ago for the incoming Congress. Now, it could be at the end of the day that they let the issue go. They punt on the issue. They get stalled out and they just bicker and bicker and bicker for months and months. Nothing gets accomplished. Nobody does anything. In fact, that's not an unlikely outcome. But at the very least, an attempt is being made, which is more than the Republican Party typically does. Let's fucking face it. Denying S, maybe the rancher just snapped. Yeah, that's possible. You know, maybe they put him in the nut ward or something. Again, I believe that a person should be able to defend their property, and I think that the threshold for the deployment of self-defense, lethal or non-lethal, should be lower, especially on a person's property or in their vehicle, which is an extension of their property. I believe in that. But you have to wait for the law to catch up to that fact. With the Bruin decision, you could end up with nationwide stand your ground and castle doctrine, because there's a historical precedent for those existing. There's no long-standing historical precedent for anyone not being able to defend themselves, especially within their physical dwelling. Of course, this took place in his field. It didn't take place in his house or in their vehicle. You know, if somebody attacks you in your carriage back in 1795, I'm sure that deploying the little pepper box on them would not have been considered to be a problem. But again, you must understand the law as it really is. Reality as it really is very important when you're doing things, because otherwise you can be in a world of shit and be held on $1 million bail. Miss Grimstock, hi Sticks, you're so early that I missed the first 15 minutes. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. Magnastic Ralliar, if Trump wins, who would actually attend the inauguration? Yeah, it would be actually quite fun because I have a feeling there would be a lot of people that would sit it out. Ozzy's Robots tweeted to Veritas, 1 million reward if you could prove and convict anyone at Pfizer or Big Pharma is engaged in illegal GOF research. No response. Yeah, the funny part is you actually, I believe, have the money to pay them that without blinking an eye. Yeah, you should badger them more. Hey, Project Veritas, you've got a standing offer here. You can make a lot of money. You know, you can buy another home for one of your staffers or something. Null hypothesis, alien killers go free. Rancher gets $1 million bail. Again, it depends on the situation, whether he ends up getting freed or not. I would point out that the particular illegal immigrant that he shot did not get away. He's dead, so. My super hats come through, $100. Interesting. Once again, a shit ton more people watching on Rumble than at usual times. Microsoft and Google are currently locked in. And Google fucked up the other day, too, when it deployed its particular its AI system. It didn't go over so well, and I think resulted in a massive multi-billion-dollar loss to their company's stock because they... what the fuck did they do? Somebody prep me on this. Did Google's AI like misspell something or some shit? It said something totally off the wall. I didn't have time to read the full story, but they fucked up anyway. Are we racing towards AI catastrophe? As tech giants like Microsoft and Google compete to capture the AI market, safety could be an afterthought. Of course it will, because they're making shit tons of money. What's going to happen is formulaic. Big corporations will gobble up AI resources. The government will get involved, attempting to exclude smaller competitors. And the only way we can forestall this is for a free speech group to develop its own AI. That's what we need. We need to pull together with all of our various talents and resources and create an alternative to big corporate AI. Because otherwise, one won't be allowed to exist. They will attempt to regulate smaller competitors out of the market. The government will misuse the technology to try to spy on people, propagandize to people, and run independent individuals into the ground. I'll tell you, for instance, a substantial portion of my income comes from self-publishing works that I've written or edited. That's not going to be possible in a few years. AI will be able to massively outstrip humans in forms of creating the content. It doesn't mean you won't be allowed to make the content. It doesn't mean that your content might not sell, but you will sell a lot less because it will flood the market. Once they have enough AI, they can flood the market with AI-made like fiction works. People will read them. What do we compete for as content creators? And this is the case for physical mediums like books as well as for digital like a video. We compete for people's usage of time. You're not competing with another bookseller or another author for sales in the direct absolute number sense. I can buy a copy of your book and a copy of a book that's similar to yours by someone competing for my attention. How much attention am I giving to the books, though? It gets diluted the more books there are. Potentially. Maybe I like one a lot more than the others. Like I've read The Elf and SHIB probably 50 times at this point. I haven't read most works anywhere near that amount. But it will dilute the market. It will flood it with material. Video making. AI is already being used to create video material. It will be used to create music. If you're a musician, you're going to be in a more crowded market. Because not only do you have to compete with all the other humans in the market, now you're going to also have to compete with corporations deploying AI. And you don't have to pay the AI. Now you have to pay the energy bill, etc. And there's engineers that design it and make sure the server's working and shit like that. But it is far more efficient. Anything that can be done by AI are ostensibly and arguably should be done by AI. It makes things more efficient. And this will create some jobs while destroying others. Any sort of independent content creation might become impossible after the next 20 years, unfortunately. What I'm doing right now might effectively be impossible. I'll be physically capable of doing it, but I'll be competing with a bunch of fucking goddamn robots. And once the novelty wears off, you might see a silver lining in the form of people rejecting that, going retro and saying, I want a real person or something like that. We're not exactly sure. However, will it be a catastrophe? Like, will it rip the world apart and upend society? No, it's not going to upend society. If anything, people that get in on it early and have the right talent or enough capital to invest can make out like bandits. It's going to be the next crypto on that token. Journey Trials and Joy. How do you have faith in the system when the media and institutions have become corrupted? I mean, can probably do something with the votes of the people. I don't have any faith in the system and never had. Ray Yanma, Andy Six's logs would solve so many of these problems. Maybe politicians need to mature. Yes, they need to grow up and take their meds. Rose Hill Living 2022, wishing you and your fans a good day. Thank you for your lovely streams. Thank you very much. Oh, you live streams. I thought you meant lovely. Null Hypothesis. I come here for honest news analysis. Stick666 must be Mexican because he's doing the job that the American news media refuses to do. SP Elite, knickers are the worst kind of underwear. John Sullivan, greetings from New Hampshire, former LCDR, USNR. As US has an emperor without clothes as leader, I think war with China will be very soon. What say ye, 666? No, I don't think that there's an imminent war with China because that would be bad for trade and money, and China really likes trade and money. I think they're too busy colonizing parts of the third world effectively in Africa and South Asia right now. But it could happen. It would probably be more through diplomatic mistake than through actual sheer malevolence, which is a problem. The Landlord Harassment Channel, ban AI. That's impossible now. The cat's already out of the bag. You heard it first from me. You're not going to get rid of AI. And it's going to destroy a lot of careers. I wouldn't want to be a musician right now. I'm glad that I've already edited and written so many works, and I'm speeding through some more right now. But yes, AI is capable of looking at documents and piecing things together quicker than any human can. Magnastic Rallier, how goes the Timmy movie script? I've never laughed so hard at that idea. I nearly died. Yeah, I mean, I completed the basic process of the basic premise of the movie. I haven't done a script yet, though. To do a full screenplay or something, get it to Troma. Journey Trials and Joy, then why vote? Well, the alternative is you have no hope. If you have some hope, you should take it as an alternative. Dylan Blyler, spring is here in Maryland. Here's 5 funny monies in exchange for advice on what to plant. Plant lots and lots of horseradish. Yes. And tomatoes, of course. Plant everything. It's build your garden a lot bigger than in past years. Double it or triple it in size if you can. Ozzy's Robots, AI attractive robot newscasters and actors at CNN. Yes, you will see newscasters that are AI, I'm sure. You already have VTubers. It's kind of similar in function. Dutch West Indian Co., morbid stories. Yes, I had fun writing those. Tom, what time of day did the shooting happen in Texas that factors in along with age? I don't know if they released a time that the shooting occurred at, actually. Over on Rumble, open source farmer. Found you years ago while searching for gardening videos. Stayed for the commentary. I'm having a free JADM farming class this Sunday, the 12th at JSH Hydroponics in Houston, Texas, 11 a.m. All clankers, welcome. Interesting. And then the final news story here. So don't worry about AI is not going to destroy you, and it's not going to be like killer robots or something. But it will be used for the normal sleaze and corruption of big corporations and their government monopolistic partners. And then we have touching news here. Tim Pool and the Quartering have reconciled. They both made apology tweets earlier. The Quartering had made a video, "Stronger together. I am sorry, Timcast," and then he posts his video. Tim Pool says, "Together again. This past week of insanity with Veritas and these Republicans getting shot made me realize we have to stand together. I'm sorry too, Jeremy. Let's not let them distract and disrupt us." So I would applaud them both for having the maturity to do this. I didn't originally talk much about the actual falling out that they had because I don't do e-drama. I did want to focus on this, though, because it is more important than people are giving it credit for. Content creators have got to stick together. It's fine to have ideological divides and debates over them. It's fine to have, personal drama. Don't let it escalate to this point. Because what happens is then you both get crucified by the legacy media. They don't like Tim Pool. They don't like the Quartering. You'll get attacked, held up as a reason why they need more censorship, held up as a reason why the evil far right is corrupt or something like that. Inevitably. And people with even wonkier ideologies than you may believe in the other party having, like, the breadliners or something, who have sort of fallen from grace, which is hilarious to see since they get literal British funding from the government there to the tunes of much, much money. I wonder how they keep up their lifestyle. I don't think it's the Superchats, my dude. When you have a situation like this, those people jump in and then they use it for leverage too. Especially through algorithmic hijacking, especially when you've got two fairly big names here, Tim Pool and the Quartering, each have huge audiences. There will be people who want to talk about the story just to grift. One reason why I avoided making a video on the subject, other than my aversion to e-drama, by the way. Darun Albain, Project Veritas accusers, some have pronouns in bios and high-level pusher. Also the old CNN guy. Also only of fans for Kitty. Thank you very much. Yes, it is true. They do have a former CNN figure there now. And some of them appear to be woke, which is, it's interesting that they were hired in the first place. Cam2425IA, Skynet Clank. Yeah, I don't care about e-drama, but when you have something like this where you can talk about it and say, well, there was a reconciliation, that's what you need to have, that's the way to go about it. I see interpersonal drama all the fucking time with content creators, and I'm like, it's not really helpful to either of you, just to be clear. Yeah, you get a little bit of extra attention by having a little, rift once in a while. That can be fine. It's a grift, but it's a harmless one. When you get to the point where there's a full-on falling out and people are, trying to choose a side, so they're leaving one audience or the other and withdrawing into something more closely resembling an echo chamber, it's not informing anyone. We're going into a dangerous political season right now at a time when we've got multiple significant wars in the world going on and all sorts of other crazy shit like the Twitter files and stuff like that. Now is the time to attempt to work and coordinate together, I think. They should go on each other's shows. They should do a joint broadcast or something like that. That'd be funny. Oh, did Tim get swatted again? What time is he on then at this point? Like number 6 or 7 or something like that? You'd think at some point they would escalate that to a major felony case. Like, in my opinion, calling in a false report to the police that's likely to result in that should be an attempted murder charge. Because when you have a bunch of dudes bursting in at 6 a.m. with their guns drawn, that could lead to somebody getting killed. The person who has done nothing wrong is not expecting someone with a gun at their door. They arm themselves because they think it's a fucking burglar or something, or someone like Tim Pool. It could be Antifa members or so BLM or Black Bloc or something. Wouldn't you think that should result in an attempted murder charge? Probably multiple charges, because you're attempting to get the cops hurt too, if that person happens to have a firearm of any sort. Ozzy's Robots, your audience should be as large as the quartering. Well, while I would agree with that, it's partially because I'm directly algorithmically throttled by YouTube and have been for several years. SP Elite, PV, Project Veritas, FR had a dude with pronouns in bio that high up their chain, like, come on, dude. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Also, it was also Cassandra messing up Tim's brand. I don't know anything about that. Yeah, Nick Clark, Sticks, you and Anomaly should be co-hosts. I'm sure that would go over really goddamn well. The only time I do, and I'll talk about that briefly, the only time that I do talk about the interpersonal side of things is if someone has directly attacked me or my audience or something like that, which Anomaly did. He just went completely nuts and blocked me on Twitter for disagreeing with him. And since then, he has taken multiple pot shots from behind his Twitter blocking of me. I've clanked on his stream a couple of times, which the first time really drove him up the wall. And he ended up devolving into talking about me for about 15 minutes straight. So I looked at that as a little bit of a win. I figure what's good for the goose is good for the gander, my dude. Now, I don't talk about him too much because he's blocked me. And he's not talking about me explicitly. I don't give a fuck what he does. Lawn care for you 42 should be 1000% be attempted murder. Darun Albane, in Arizona, you can pew-pew trespassers with warnings. Yes, but again, when that person attempts to flee, what are they doing? They're obeying your warning. And that's why if he shot him in the back, he's definitely going to prison. Ozzy's Robots agree you're throttled versus the milk toast creators. Yeah, I've been throttled before, back way over in the old days. This is the 2000s. I was geo-blocked in some countries, Germany, Italy, a few others. And actually, I think it was because for a while there, back when YouTube would let you do this, I had a bunch of documentaries on my channel. I had stuff about Atlantis and shit like that. A lot of history. I had History's Mysteries up there. Engineering and Empire. I had some episodes of that. This was back in the day when you could find these things, physically download them, re-up them, and the copyright check was all manual, so there was no automated system. I'm sorry, YouTube, for doing that. I took those all down a long time ago, by the way. But I had one documentary. It was about 2 fucking hours long. It's a British documentary, actually, about the Nazis, about Nazi Germany. And I'm thinking that's what triggered the geo-blocking. But it took them 5 or 6 years to remove that geo-block, even after I had deleted it because I got rid of all the third-party content that I had on my page. That was long ago. Darun Albane in Arizona, get off my land, gets ignored, pew. Exactly. But if the person is currently attempting to get off your land, you can't shoot them. You can't shoot them when they're attempting to do what you're asking them to do. And of course, if your ranch is huge and the person's in the middle of your field, you can tell them to get lost as soon as they start moving. You got to give them time to actually get off of your property. Takes a little while to run several acres. Adam Schrader, Google AI just said, JWST took the very first pictures of a planet. Tim swatted 15 other times. Huh. Demablez, for you, have Sim Settlement 2 for Fallout 4 mods. I didn't like Sim Settlement, actually. When I play Fallout 4, I have a shit ton of mods on it because otherwise it's a boring game after a few playthroughs. With the right mods, it makes it 10 times better. I like mods that add more, especially to the settlement system, the ability to build. That's interesting. You've got to buff up the Minutemen, otherwise there's no reason to rely upon them for anything because they're so fucking goddamn weak. Yes, a dude with no armor carrying a laser musket is really going to last a long time against a bunch of super mutants. Also, the synth relay grenades were massively underpowered in the game. That really, you could only overwhelm a handful of smaller, weaker targets using them because they get hit once and they die. They had several mods for that, but none of them really tripped my trigger. They were all overpowered. One was the synth follower mod that spawned a Gen 2 synth. So you could spawn 2 or 3 of them. They'd follow you around. That sounds novel. And they would actually like pick up weapons and stuff. Sometimes they get a leg blown off and they'd be like shuffling along on one leg, like dragging themselves, trying to follow you. And it was kind of funny. But they were followers. And so that became a problem. The other one spawned 3 Gen 2 synths. Well, that's too overpowered because then 2 of them can clear out an entire massive ass area because they're overpowered. I would have liked it if you could switch between follower and non-follower, and it would spawn less of them. It would spawn either a couple of Gen 1 synths or 1 Gen 2 synth as non-followers or a Gen 1 synth as a follower. Having a few of them to storm into a building would be useful, but it wouldn't be overpowered. But nobody got the mod right. Let's see. So no, I didn't use sim settlements. Demoblez, I really liked NPCs travel for variety. Yeah, I think that, if I remember correctly, that was the one where, all sorts of characters would wander around all over the place. So there was a little bit more going on. I think that's the one I'm thinking of. Also, of course, the unofficial patch was a necessity. It solves 10,000 problems in the game, including the loading screen problem. Like Thurman, why is YouTube suggesting 8 to 10-year-old videos by you? It's done this for years now. I have absolutely no idea. The old videos, they're not throttled. Only the new ones are. Sometimes they don't even appear on my fucking channel to people. That happens all the friggin' time. Yeah, NKFD, play Fallout 4, but mod it. Make sure to get Nexus mods going on that. You're going to need about 20 mods to make it fully playable and not to have loading issues, especially. If you can get the right mods, though, and you can look up lists of different mods for the game, better textures and shit like that, it becomes a brand new game. Same with Skyrim. Skyrim, when it first came out, was breathtaking. It didn't age quite so well. But with the right mods, it makes it a lot better. Hell Radio Lives. So glad creator drama is Styx anathema. And always has been and always will be. Anyway, I think I'm going to go off here because I've got some other stuff to do. I am cooking fried chicken again tonight, as I said. It's going to be good. Just a salad on the side. I'm not going to go all out and make like home fries or something. And, when you're eating a bunch of fried chicken, you might want something that's lighter to counterbalance it. And I make a really good vinaigrette dressing now, too, with extra lemon and shit. Noob Not 08. Thoughts on the Vampire the Masquerade inspired Fallout 4 mod Sanguinaire? I don't think I've seen that one, so I don't have an opinion. Josh X. Styx, did your mom sleep with John Lennon 9 months prior to your birth? You can tell us. He. No, she didn't, actually. Many such cases of such confusion. Or Joey Ramone, actually, for that reason. SP Elite, I give everyone here the N-word pass to use it. N-word pass, use it well. I'm allowed to say Nigeria. It's a country. It's perfectly fine. So yeah, I will be going offline here. I've got some other things I need to attend to. That's about all. Peace out.